Hello, and welcome to your NARSA weekly update for the week commencing Monday, the 20th of October 2025. Wow, it's Gary here again. What an absolutely bizarre time we've had of it this past, 15 days now? I guess if you just take the latest comedic episode that we've endured this season as being part of the Rangers support at the time of recording right now. It's just before 11 a.m. in the morning, 10:55 actually, is what it is. We have just confirmed the appointment of new head coach, Danny Rohl. And, it's one of these things, I think everybody has been involved in it in terms of the chronicling of what's happened. We went for Steven Gerrard, that didn't work. We spoke to Danny Rohl. For whatever reason, that didn't go forward. We then went and pursued Kevin Muscat. That didn't work. And then we went back to Danny Rohl. And one key thing in the beginning, I was actually chatting with a pal of mine who's a Southampton fan, and he says, "You guys like the ex-Saints, don't you?" And I'd actually forgotten, in terms of what Danny Rohl's CV is, that he was actually at Southampton with Ralph Hesselhout, or whatever his name is. Forgive me for butchering that one, but yeah, so I hope it doesn't work out the same as the previous Southampton guy here. And by all accounts, he is a very different type of style of character, very different type of style of playing style and such as well. So we'll just need to see what that looks like. And one of the things, I was actually trying to see a video to hear his voice. I've never actually heard the guy's voice before. And I was trying to see a video just to see what it was all about. But all we've got, or all I had access to prior to that, was the print of what Rangers had put on their socials. It hadn't even made its way to the website by the time I started recording here. And one of the key things that he said, Danny Rohl, is that I respect that trust is earned and understand that we have to give the supporters confidence in what we are doing by showing it on the pitch from the start. And I like that. I like that. I mean, he's here now, folks, as simple as that. And we have to get behind him. There's nothing to be gained by standing booing him or giving him the Russell Martin treatment in the last month or so of his tenure with us. I think that the key thing here, well, I guess maybe just finishing off on the article, then after Danny's quotes there, the article went on where we had quotes from the top four brass at the club. We had the chairman, the vice chairman, the sporting director, and the chief executive officer, all with a couple of sentences or a few sentences from themselves. Would have been nice to have heard from them in the last couple of weeks there, just to say, listen, these things are never linear. These things sometimes don't go the way that you're hoping they go. The information that's being spread out there maybe isn't accurate, or maybe it is accurate, or we're doing our best, or whatever it is. When we go dark for these amount of times, all we have as a support to do is make stuff up. And then they're back. They're back, at least in print anyway, to say, hey, look what we did. And, we could just manage our PR better. We could just manage our communications better. I've offered up help numerous times to the club and would still continue to do that as long as I am a Rangers fan, to say, look, this is how things land when you do it like this. And sometimes it looks like they either don't know or don't care, and it becomes a wee bit frustrating, that. But here's a wee bit of perspective that I read last week. There was an article in the Athletic by Jordan Campbell, and he said, and what I thought was a damning statement. Meanwhile, only once in the last 5 seasons has a Rangers manager who started the season made it past the November international break. Only once in the last 5 seasons has a Rangers manager who started the season made it back. And we've compounded that again this season. And based on how things go, I mean, are we? What if he has an absolute stink bomb of a start, and then we are in a situation where we do a Nottingham Forest and we just give him 39 days and he's out on his backside? Who knows what that looks like? But that's just not stability. It's just not. It's nowhere near stability, and it's one of these things that all the change that we've been going through, there's absolutely zero chance we're going to get any sort of sustained success with all the changes we've went through, all the different types of styles of personalities that have walked through the doors, or the things that they've tried when they've came into the club, and the success they have had or not during their stint with us. It's just, I think the annals of time will look back and say, no wonder we never won anything meaningful, or we never sustained any sort of success. Of course, we did win 55 there a few years back. It's just one of these things. And here's my experience in terms of business. Like, there's not a lot of people that are formally trained on the hiring process, on the arts and science of the hiring process, and specifically the interview process. If you believe some of the rumours that the chairman and the vice chairman had agreements in principle with each of the candidates, then passed it on to Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, who managed to make a monumental mess of it, and then the people refused. I find that kind of difficult to believe, because if that was the case, you would think then that the chairman and vice chairman would take some action on that. And who knows? I mean, we actually don't know what the process is and was and looked like until other people come out and say, this is what my experience of the process was. Say, for example, Stephen Gerrard or Kevin Muscat. We're never really going to know. And by the way, that's just their opinion, or just their interpretation of what their experience was. There's three sides to every story, isn't there? There's your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. So we're going to have to try and figure that out. And does it really matter? Danny Rohl is here now, and we have to figure out what we're doing. But in my experience, I've been involved in some really poor recruiting in my time. I've made a couple of bad hires myself. I've been involved in hires that have just not worked out. And I've also witnessed perfectly good, really, really competent professionals who just seem to crumble when it comes to the interview scenario and the interview process. And I think there's a reason that human resources is an industry in of itself, and it's because not everyone can do it, and you need professional expertise to be able to figure out what that process looks like, how nuanced it is for the particular type and style of industry that you're in, and then give yourself that opportunity to say, can we do this to the level of quality, the standards that we're actually trying to attain here? And if the answer's not sure, don't know, you go seek external help. There's enough resources within the organisation to be able to say, we need some external help on this, not agents pushing their particular guy or anything like that, but just people who have expertise in the recruiting process. Because I've said for many, many, many years on this particular podcast, it's not a thing that Rangers Football Club hierarchy have done well over the years, certainly since I started the podcast. But if you look back on it over time, and I think partly because they never really had to. You had managers who were there for a long time. So when you don't do something for 4, 5, 6 years at a time, of course you're going to be rusty. Of course you're going to kind of forget what that process looks like, and you're going to need some help and support through that. We've been well versed in it. As I said earlier there, or as Jordan said, only once in the last 5 seasons has a Rangers manager who started the season made it past the November international break. We've been recruiting almost actively for the last 4 or 5 seasons. So we should be better at it. Yes, I know it's a new team in town, but these guys have been doing this type and style of work elsewhere as well. And it's just not, I don't know, it's just not good enough. I think, honestly, sometimes in life, for whatever reason, or calamity is actually probably a good word, isn't it? But a culmination of reasons, you just become a lightning rod for all things that are going wrong, don't you? If you think about this in your personal life, you have situations where these things compound, and one thing after another, your car breaks down, you end up getting a cold, you miss a trip, you're late for a meeting, your watch breaks, your phone smashes, you burn the dinner, like whatever it is. And I think that's been us for a number of years, but certainly it's been more compounded since the takeover. And I think partly to that is that we were so enthusiastic about the takeover in the beginning, weren't we? I mean, we were delighted there was some money coming in. There was these guys who had, certainly experience of big business and sports and such with the San Francisco 49ers, and of course with the Leeds contingent. And it has been a literal lightning rod for anything that could go wrong. Kind of has gone wrong. And as I'd said to some folks in the club there on Saturday, there wasn't that many there again, of course. But, when the takeover happened, the first and only priority should have been first team success, men's first team success, because that's the foundation for everything. And thus far, they have failed in that. And then it feels like it's been a ruinous season thus far. Yes, Rohl is saying that there's so much to play for on all four fronts and stuff. Yeah, okay. And in the league, not so much. In the League Cup, yes, of course. In Europe, it's not too late to turn that around. The Scottish Cup hasn't even started yet. So yes, there's absolute truth to that. But the fact is that our foundation here, as we sit on the 20th of October, is shaky, it's cracked, it's broken, it's fragmented at best, and it's going to take a monumental effort. Not that they didn't, not that they meant it, of course. They went and invested money in the team, and they signed and recruited a lot of players, some of them who have not produced their best form for Rangers thus far. We signed, 10, 11 players, and name one that you would say has been an absolute shining light from the very, very beginning of the season. I can't, folks. I can't. And we've had some ups and downs, and Gassama has probably been the one that's kind of showed it the most consistently. But the recruitment seems to have been all wrong. The backroom stuff seems to have been all wrong. Obviously the previous head coach, was all wrong. So we don't have a lot of evidence to say that they've got it right this time, especially with what happened over the last 15 days. I don't know that it does the club any benefit now to come out and say, listen, folks, here's what happened, here's what's going on. But we need better PR. We need people to come out and explain to us properly where we're at, what we're actually doing next, what the ethos of the club is now, how we're going to learn from the mistakes, the very obvious mistakes that have been made, and give us a wee bit of confidence, show a bit of personality there, show that you care as much as we do, because some of the things that have happened in the club and some of the appointments that have been made and certainly the results that have come on the back of that have just not been good enough and nowhere near good enough. And the fans have showed that and demonstrated to that very point, but the club just they can't really seem to get out of their own way right now, which is heartbreaking. It really, truly is heartbreaking. So we'll see. And one of the things, I know that, speaking of lightning rods, one of the guys that's getting it most tight right now is Kevin Thelwell. And I was actually challenging a couple of groups that I was chatting with over the weekend there to say, is it truly the person who's the problem here? Is it that Kevin Thelwell is incompetent? Is it that he is not a nice person? Is it that no one really wants to work with him? Is it that he in some way is a negative influence on what it is we're trying to do at the club? The short answer to all of those questions is I don't know. I don't know the guy. I haven't heard much from him since he got in. But is it the person, or is it the methodology, essentially, or the process that we are following here? Because we've obviously made a big change to say we're not going to go for a manager type situation where the manager role is different to the head coach role. The head coach role essentially is that other people will recruit the players and then you will coach who is recruited, and you don't have as much influence on that player recruitment as a manager would. And that seems to have been a stumbling block, if you believe what was said out there for Steven Gerrard. And the Muscat thing, who knows what that was, whether it was a timing thing and he wasn't able to come prior to the end of the Chinese season or not. Because my question then really was, or is, if we were to replace Kevin Thelwell as director of football and still insist that we have a director of football or sporting director, forgive me, I don't know exactly what his title is, and then still do that process, still follow that methodology of we have this recruitment model in place, it's been a success in other clubs and this is what we're going to follow here. And then we're still not going to convince a Steven Gerrard to come along then, because he would be saying, no, that's not the type of style of role that I want. So I don't know. And I say that, being generous to say, obviously Kevin Thelwell has not covered himself in glory yet in terms of the recruitment and the appointments that he has made, with Russell Martin, with his son, and the optics of doing that too. But does it get any better if he's not in the role and someone else is in the role under the same structure? That's kind of what I'm asking myself now. And as I said, the short answer for me is I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, he's had a bit of tenure here. The tenure has not been great at all. And we just need to see what the next wee while brings. But it all comes down to the men's first team. It really does. And we need to get to a situation where the men's team start to win games, start to do things properly, and start to figure things out. Listen to the Jack Butland interview after the game at Dundee United on the weekend, and he comes out in a rage saying, I don't know what goes through these guys' heads most of the time. So Anyway, a lot to unpack in the first part of the pod this week. I do appreciate that, and we'll move on with the rest of it. But congratulations, welcome aboard, Danny Rohl, from everyone at NARSA. We hope that your tenure is more successful than your, what's that now, 3 or 4 predecessors, and we hope that you can actually bring some excitement and realise some of that potential and promise that you've definitely shown. I mean, he's got a fabulous CV in terms of what he's done thus far. So we just need to not be romanticised about that, but be respectful of that, give him his place and see how things go. And the good news is that he doesn't have to wait too long. He's got a game in 4 days, and then another game 3 days after that, and then another game. And we have some important games coming up here over the next wee while. So speaking of games, let's move on to the game segment. Of course, the only game that we had last week was the 2-2 draw at home to Dundee United. More lost points, or depends what way you look at it, I guess, maybe a gain point, at home. And, for the first half of the game, like, what a difference. What a difference in the energy and the effort and the endeavour and the simplicity of what we're doing. We scored actually all 4 goals. I thought all 4 goals on the weekend were absolutely incredible. From a highlights and entertainment perspective, that's what TV producers are probably looking for. But we had Asgard's first goal for the club, which was an absolutely brilliant finish, and it was just a brilliant first half. Everyone was up for it. The fans were there. The fans were enjoying it. Not full house, but it was just absolutely what we're looking for. And you just start to think, right, okay, is it the manager? Is it that new bounce that you get? Is it a wee bit of a freedom from the atmosphere, basically, that was created by the previous management regime? Who knows? Second half starts a wee bit scrappy for me, and then they started to get quite physical, and quite an unusual thing happened. The referee started to book them for it eventually. Started to book them for that. Usually they do all these dark arts fouls, and then we get the first yellow card for the first challenge, and it's a wee bit late or something like that. And that's not the way that it worked out. But as soon as they started to get physical, we just started to go into our shell. And here's the thing that we never, ever, ever, well, maybe we do say it, but in the team that I play for, at half time, someone will say, more of the same in the second half, boys, more of the same here. But there's also an additional part to say, they might start to get a little bit chippy. They might start to get a wee bit more physical. They might start to lose their minds. Whatever it is, there's always a caveat to that. To say, look, yes, we want everything, all the good stuff that you did there, but they're not going to come out and do the exact same thing, because they got absolutely railroaded in the first half, and they were the most lucky team in the entire country at that time, that they were only 1-0 down at half time. So they're obviously going to change something. And then, we just didn't adapt to that. We just kind of thought, oh, well, that's that. That's what it looks like, from a team dynamic or a team observation perspective. And then we lost a goal from, actually at the time, was from absolutely nowhere. Their sub just comes on, and I think it was maybe the first or second touch that he'd scored with. And after we lost that, we reverted to type, didn't we? We went into our shell a wee bit. We had some dodgy substitutions, I thought, by Stevie Smith, where they took off Gassama, unless there was an injury there or something. I didn't listen to Stevie Smith's post-match after the game, just because I wasn't really that interested in hearing what he had to say. It seemed that Gassama was the guy, and he looked pretty upset when he got taken off as well. He was the guy that was unlocking things, that he was getting a lot of the ball, and as was Antman as well at the beginning of the game, or certainly in the first half. And I thought we just got worse as the second half went on, didn't we? We lost another goal, another brilliant finish, but we should have closed the guy down a lot quicker so that he doesn't get that shot in. It came from a breakaway, a great save, and then we're all kind of standing looking at the ball going, oh, look at that, check that, oh, look, it's in the back of the net. And it just didn't really look like, to me, it didn't look like, and the irony is, I'd said to Alex, our vice president in Calgary here, I said, when it went to 1 each, I said, there is absolutely no way we're losing this game today. There's no way that we're not going to win this game, is actually what I said to him. And then we go 2-1 down, and he's kind of looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, well, don't listen to me about anything, basically. And it just looked like it was going to run away from us. And then we got a brilliant equaliser from Tav after really good work from Mikey Moore to kind of get control of the ball and lay it off for Tav. And I think that's actually the first decent thing that Mikey Moore has done for us since he joined. He has not been an effective signing for us at all. Forget the age, forget about the work visa thing, the hassle that we had to get him here in the first place. He just hasn't hasn't helped the team as much as we anticipated that he was going to, and that's something that's going to have to be addressed here. And it felt to me towards the end of the game that if any team was actually going to nick it, it might have been Dundee United. But then they just went into, I mentioned the dark arts there earlier, they just went into all that stuff at the end of the game, the phantom cramps and the wasting time and such like that. But I think after we'd equalised, I don't recall us fashioning another meaningful chance that would have given us the opportunity to actually, say, oof, we deserved the victory, whatever. And by the way, if we'd have won that, I think we would have thoroughly deserved the victory after the first half performance, but it wasn't to be. And that's just the story of how things are going with this squad for right now. The positives, the first half was brilliant. I thought the best of the season by an absolute mile, and it's good to know that we can do that. And coming back, after things went wrong for us and we did go into our shell and we did revert to type, and getting that equaliser was great. And as I mentioned there earlier, with the result in Dundee yesterday, we are a point closer to who we believe to be the title challengers, but that's not to ignore what Hearts are doing. We're a mile behind Hearts right now, and we're 7/8 of a mile behind that mob from the East End. So it's a point that we might not have had we not equalised. Of course, we wouldn't have had it if we hadn't equalised. But just one of these games where we've seen the Jekyll and Hyde of Rangers Football Club right now, and it's just frustrating. In terms of the negatives, most of the second half wasn't good enough. For defending for both goals certainly wasn't good enough. And as I've said, we must know that sort of thing is coming. That these guys are going to pull out all the tricks, all the stops to try and put us off our game, to try and get in our face, to try and do the opposite of what they did in the first half when we were so far ahead of them, and we're just not wise to it. We're just not street smart enough to be able to deal with this sort of thing. And it felt a wee bit that we got a wee bit out-coached in the second half, which is natural. We've got an under-19s coach versus a very tenured, seasoned manager there, so that's something that has to happen. And I just have to say here that these dark arts, the time wasting and such at the end of the game, it's just, I know Steven Gerrard, when he was the manager of Rangers, he said we can't complain about that. We need to put ourselves in a winning position so that they don't do that. And I appreciate and understand that, but that's just not football for me. I just think about what I would think if Leo did that. If Leo became a professional football player, which is not in his path, so he's probably not going to do that. But if he became a professional football player and then started all that time wasting, probably I'm very biased, of course, when it comes to Leo. So I would be like, that's my boy, you need to do what you need to do to get the results you need to get to and stuff. And maybe we might have done that if it was the other way around, but we don't do that to the level that other teams do that. And I think that either we need to change or something else needs to change. I just hate it. I do, even when we do it, I'm kind of like, oh, cringe. I don't like it. And as I mentioned earlier, we're nowhere near good enough in the last 30 minutes of the game to end up with the 2-2 draw. So in terms of the stats, I don't even remember. I know at one point we were 75% and we had 23 or 24 shots in the first half. I think we maybe did about 6 in the second half. I didn't do the research for that particular part. Sorry about that. But in terms of the overall game, I don't know that we got what we deserved, but when you do a second half like that, you're running the risk of not getting what you deserve, and that's exactly what happened. The referee watched Don Robertson. I think he booked enough of their players, as I mentioned earlier. He did his job, and he didn't get petty. He didn't do that thing that we always seem to fall foul of, which is getting that first booking after they've been fouling us, strategically all over the pitch. So fair play to him for that. One part that he did kind of let himself down was where he stopped the game towards the end as we were pushing for a non-head injury. And my understanding is they're not supposed to do that. That's not a thing that's part of the rule book anymore. If it's a head injury, yes, but the guy went down with an ankle or a calf thing going on and he stopped that, so he fell for it, I think, but not to the detriment of our game. It's just one of these, of our result, I should say. It's just one of these things that happen. So I'll give him the standard 7 out of 10. He did his job and no more, and that's it. In terms of next games, we have the Europa League game away at Brann Stadion on Thursday the 23rd of October. That's a 12:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff. It's 5:45 p.m. UK, so just remember that. It's an earlier kickoff. I am actually heading down to a conference, a coaching conference no less, in San Diego this week, and I'll be driving from Orange County to San Diego at the very time the game is on. So I'm hoping my love Erin will be actually driving and I'll get a chance to see the game, or at the very least we'll have the game on and I'll get to hear what's going on and glance over. Not distracted driving, but if it's ever safe to do so, I'll glance over at the screen. I have zero clue what's going to happen in this game, folks. Absolutely none whatsoever. We're just going to have to see what happens and see where we take it from there. And then that's followed by Kilmarnock at Ibrox on Sunday the 26th. And that's an 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time kickoff because the clocks go back in the UK this weekend. So we have an extra hour there for a week here. So, I'll say the same for this game. I have no clue what's going to happen. We'll see if Danny Rohl has an immediate impact. We'll see if we can actually take it to Killie or not. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in these games. I know that what I want, which is 2 wins, and we'll see what happens. 2 wins, helps kickstart things, certainly in Europe, and then gives us a wee bit of an opportunity to breathe a sigh of relief and figure out what's next from there. In terms of the shout-outs for this week, just I'm going to do this for the next, what would this be, this week and next week, I guess, and then it's party time. But we have the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary's 25th anniversary. If you have ever been to the Rangers Supporters Club of Calgary at any point and you're within the vicinity, we'd love to see you there at Pint Bar on Saturday, the 1st of November. From starting about 2 o'clock or so, we'll get some posters done up and get them sent out here so that we can get as much interest as we can. Hopefully former committee members will make it. Hopefully, as I say, anyone who has an interest in Rangers and just wants to come down and mark this occasion, that would be great. 25 years for any volunteer, for any organisation, but any volunteer organisation, especially after the garbage that we've had to put up with from 2012 to now, is absolutely incredible, and it's an opportunity to just thank everybody who's been involved in that and have a few beers, and obviously we've got the Oasis theme going on there. And by the way, this is not a fluke. I think this is actually destined and written in the stars. My favourite Oasis song is Roll With It. And now we have Danny Rohl in place. I don't think that's a coincidence whatsoever. And I think we're going to have some good fortunes under this new guy, literally just because of that fact. We did have an email on the weekend there from a NARSA convention attendee Colin Cook, who won the mascot prize at the convention down in Kissimmee there back in June, and the prize was the mascot, and he gifted the mascot prize, a matchday mascot that is, to his nephew, and he wrote a big thank you to all at NARSA and Rangers. My nephew is still buzzing after his mascot experience today. He walked on the pitch with Joe Rothwell, who played quite well, I thought, and loved seeing around the trophy room. You are very, very welcome, Colin. Delighted that your nephew had a brilliant day, and really glad that we can spread a little bit of NARSA love around when there's not a lot of love going around. A couple of birthday shout-outs. Happy birthday to NARSA President Alan McWatt, whose birthday was yesterday. I have no idea how old he was, but he acts pretty old most of the time, so it has to start with a 6. Surely it has to start with a 6. Maybe it doesn't. It doesn't matter, does it? It's only a number, Alan. It's only a number. And happy birthday to the brother of our very own Brian Campbell. Graham Campbell's birthday is today. And again, I have no idea how old he is, but it doesn't matter because it's just a number, as I said. But I got a collective gift for both of the guys in the form of a new head coach of the first team at Rangers. So you're very welcome, guys, and I hope you enjoy it and your health to use it. A couple of other wee bits and bobs here. We've got the London Marathon run for the Royal British Legion with Amanda and Jason Junior Ross. And if you can support that, I'll leave the link in there for this week. And the Melbourne City Loyal Culture Weekend, it's basically a month away now, isn't it? November 21st to 22nd. Ian Ferguson, Gary Stevens, Stuart Monroe all going. Hopefully between now and then we have a real uptick in form and we have an opportunity to have some real good celebrations over there. And just one wee milestone in terms of my own business, just to be a wee bit selfish for a second here, I do a podcast on my own business as well, and it's basically an interview series that I have going on now. I'm going to resurrect my own individual ones because I've got a lot of information to share on that too. But for the last wee while, it's been interviewing different types of styles of people from different types of styles of the world, basically, to talk about things. It's all self-development, self-improvement and self-education work. And this week, tomorrow, in fact, actually, do you know what? On the podcast platform, it gets published today, but tomorrow's the formal publication of my 100th interview episode, and I am absolutely thrilled and delighted to get to 100 episodes. And tomorrow is with a dean of the academic school that my love Erin works at, and she's a very bubbly character. This lassie, Sherry Bowker, is her name. And if you get a chance to check it out, go and check it out there and give it a wee like and subscribe. That would be very much appreciated. But yeah, just a wee selfish one for a second there. 100 is no mean feat to get 100 different types and styles of conversations with 100 different people over the time. In terms of updates from NARSA, we did meet with Greg Marshall last week, and we discussed a variety of things. We discussed retail costs and such, RTV, and potential things that are going to be happening over the next wee while with RTV and some other things. And as I read the fan advisory board minutes from the October 6th or October 8th meeting that they had, a lot of what was covered in that, if you have a chance to read that, go ahead and do so. If not, you'll see the stuff come out over the next wee while. But it was kind of comical, actually, because the fans advisory board wanted to talk about the new manager, but the meeting was already set up to basically tackle action items that hadn't been addressed from a previous meeting. So the fans advisory board are like, what about the new manager? And the folks are like, that's not the agenda for this meeting. And that comes through in the text from there. But along the lines of that, in terms of improvements to the stadium, fan engagement things, the overall finances and such like that. Never learned a whole hell of a lot in terms of absolute concretes, but you can see that there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes at the club, and that's kind of what Greg had shared there. Some of it confidential, some of it that's just going to, percolate and come out in terms of what we're doing over the next wee while. We do have a meeting this Wednesday, and I'm actually going to be with Brian Campbell for the meeting. So we're going to be able to attend the meeting this Wednesday. I'm talking about NARSA executive meeting, that is. And we're just going to discuss and decide what we're doing from a convention perspective. So we will have something to share, if not before it, next week on the pod, where we will be announcing what the convention type and style is going to look like for next year. And we're going to announce the location for the convention for next year. So you can take from that there is going to be an event for NARSA next year, and I'm going to be very, very excited to tell you a lot more about it when we have a chance to chat next week. The Rangers Charity Ball, we do still have a couple of tickets very, very generously donated from the Rangers Charity Foundation for the Charity Ball. Not one person has gotten in touch with me to go along there as representatives of NARSA. And I wonder if that's just the apathetic state that we're all in right now, and nobody's really gung-ho about heading back for the semi-final right now. Wait till you see if we have 3 or 4 victories in the next couple of weeks. There'll be a mad scramble as we lead up to the last weekend there. I guess we don't have that amount of time, do we? It's actually only 10 or 11 days from now. Maybe 2 victories and there'll be a mad scramble. Who knows what that looks like? Just a reminder that if you were waiting to post any checks in for your membership or Rangers TV dues for the season, that there are now, and Canada Post is now kind of back doing these rotating strikes, so you can actually safely post your checks over, and we will get them eventually. And I'll probably just talk about that for the next week or so and then just leave it from there. In terms of communications, we have today the Eurofiles, Rangers versus PSV Eindhoven from October 1999, and there's also Rangers women's team highlights. Tomorrow's a loan review. Wednesday's a press conference for the Brann game. There's a training ground segment. And then there's a feature on all the goals with Gabriel Amato. For those who are of my vintage, you'll definitely remember Amato. He was a bit of an enigma. He's a very good player and scored some really important goals for us too. And there's also a women's international preview. There's no women's games this weekend, no domestic women's games this weekend. Thursday, we of course have the Brann game from the Brann Stadion, and that's game number 3 for us. And Friday, I imagine there'll be a press conference, but the press conferences are a wee bit iffy, aren't they, after the European games for the Sunday game? So I'm assuming there'll be a press conference on Friday. Maybe it'll be Saturday, and we'll see what that looks like. And then, of course, on Sunday we have the game. That is a 3 p.m. UK kickoff time, but remember the clocks go back in the UK, so we have an extra hour. So whatever time it typically is for you, it's an hour later. So for us here in Calgary, it's 9 a.m. and for where I will be, which is hopefully the Orange County Rangers Supporters Club this coming weekend. Look out, folks, I'm coming your way. It will be an 8 o'clock kickoff instead of the regular 7 a.m. kickoff. So that's something to look forward to, a wee extra hour in bed we did have an SPFL disciplinary outcome for the flares and such like that were let off during I think it was the Motherwell game, the very first game of the season, and we got a suspended sentence of 50 tickets that would be removed from a future away match in an SPFL competition. 50 ticket, like, it probably took them more time to do all the admin for this than it would for the revenue generated from 50 tickets. It seems like not even a slap on the wrist. It's almost like an eyebrow raise from the SPFL. But I think the key thing, the reason I'm actually mentioning that this week, is everyone's getting targeted with this. It's not just Rangers, it's not just, against us, but we seem to just be hell-bent on doing these flare things at the games, and this is the start of the actual punishments that are coming in, and you're going to then hear about 150, you're going to hear about 500, you're going to hear about fines and such like that. This stuff, it just doesn't look like it's going away. So the SPFL are kind of treading lightly for right now, but I'm hoping that we take heed and just actually stop doing that, or do it in places that's appropriate to do so and not inside the ground. We'll see what that looks like. I did mention earlier the Fan Advisory Board meeting minutes from October the 8th, and just a thank you to Hugh Serrell for posting them on the NARSA WhatsApp group. And there wasn't really a lot to get excited about. What we want to get excited about is Rangers getting 3 points in any games that they're playing, and we're just not getting that for right now. So we'll see what that looks like. And maybe this should have been in the shout-outs, but there was an article on the Rangers website just in memory of the long-time club doctor, Dr. Donald Cruickshank, who had passed away. He had a very, very long tenure with the club, and I remember him being part of the club when I started supporting them quite some time ago. So there was a very nice article just basically saying our thanks and best wishes and condolences to the family and friends of Dr. Cruickshank there. So if you get a chance to check that out, please do go and do so. Just another reminder here, if you could go and like and subscribe our YouTube channel, please. This is going to be very material for us as we move forward. I've got a very busy couple of weeks coming up here with my conference next week and then family visiting the week after. And then after that, we're going to start to get some interviews going on the podcast and get some guests coming on the podcast, all with a view to expanding our reach to different people's networks. And we're looking to try and use that as collateral for people to get involved with us from a sponsorship perspective. So it's very, very material. All you'll get is a notification coming up every now and again saying there's a new podcast there. We don't slam you every day with content or anything like that, so it wouldn't be super annoying. It would be absolutely greatly appreciated if you could go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there, and also do so subscribe and leave a review if you can for the NARSA podcast on the channel that you listen to it on too, and that would be great as well. The Rangers women's team won 11-0 at Ibrox yesterday against Hamilton, and they're now third on the table in goal difference. I think a couple of points or 1 point behind that mob for second spot, but I think they're 5 points behind the Glasgow City. So it was proven last year the Rangers women's team had a healthy lead, and it looked like they were just going to canter towards the league championship, and they didn't do so. There was a few dodgy results actually towards the end of the season. So it's not done and dusted by any matter of fact by right now. So we'll just see what that looks like. They just need to keep plugging away and getting some goal difference results like that will absolutely help them on their way. All right, folks, a wee bit of a longer one. It typically would be when we've got a new manager in the door. Thankfully, it's all done. My main thing, folks, honestly, is relief. Relief that it's finally done. He will have to answer questions, absolutely, about being second or third choice. I'm sure the communications team will prep him to say, does it really matter? People come, people go. People have different things to do. The club wanted to do as much diligence as they could possibly do. I'm here now. What else do you want me to say? I mean, I would say something like that, to say, I'm delighted, I'm thrilled to get the opportunity, judge me on my results. As I've said on my article, trust is earned, and I'm going to earn it as quickly as I possibly can, and hopefully really get a tune out of this squad and build it up to being what we need it to be to get the results that we need to get. And he's very highly thought of, basically everywhere he's gone. But the Sheffield Wednesday fans have gone out their way to really speak highly of this guy. And, they were in a situation kind of like we were, where they were just nobody was expecting anything from them. They were down in the doldrums and such. And then he did a fantastic job under conditions that we're not exactly unfamiliar with, let's just say that. So I'm going to get behind them. I do that for every single person at Rangers and will continue to do that until my last breath, which is hopefully decades and decades and decades away. And until next week, please do share this with someone that you think might enjoy it. Ask them to like and subscribe. It's another big week. It's a new era for us. Take the time to enjoy it. Hopefully the results start to come our way, and quickly we'll just see what happens. Until next week, please do take care of yourself and all the very best. Okay, follow.